Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Talking to Myself, the part of the day where I just talk to myself about things that I was thinking the night before. Shout out, of course, to all 555 of you who are subscribed at the time of watching this video. I truly do appreciate it. And shout out, of course, to Saratoga Peanut Butter. You know exactly why. They're not a sponsor. I just really like their peanut butter. And of course, shout out to the homeboys, J.A. Kiefer, Jason Kiefer, who got me into the Nikon Light Touch. I got the battery for that, so I'm excited to go around and start shooting it. I won't be shooting like through a whole roll so that I can show you guys and give you my opinion on it because it's a film camera. It's a point and shoot. It's gonna just, it's basically gonna all come down to how I use it in the way that I use it, like an actual family environment or ways that I'll use it. So I'm not gonna go out and intentionally shoot shots to show you because I feel like that's disingenuous because I can't tell you if it's good for my application. I just be telling you if I had fun with it. Of course I'm gonna have fun with it as a film camera. So something may come out on that, something may not, but the XA2 should be here too, and I'll be shooting both of those, and I will let you know which one I keep out of those two cameras for sure. Other than that, shout out, of course, to Lee DeLeon, who I had a great conversation with. He showed me a new film preset from the Big Negative. So check out the Big Negative on YouTube and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Look up the Big Negative film preset for Fujifilm or film recipe. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about then. It's a pretty nice one. I'm excited to try it out. Shout out, of course, to my boy Young Ansel, who I had a great conversation with yesterday about the Leica Q, the 28mm focal length being my favorite and why I like it. Also, Annie, please do your homework. Just do your homework. Listen to your dad. Get your homework done. You can do whatever you want after that. Just do your homework. And here's another thing. If your dad ever tries to get you to wear Colorado Rocky stuff, don't do it. You want to know why, Annie? Because you're a winner, right? Don't you think you're a winner? I think you're a winner. Your family thinks you're a winner. Why doesn't your dad think you're a winner? Because winners root for the Dodgers because they won the World Series championship. And you're a champion just like them, aren't you, Annie? That's right, you are. Keep doing good in school, kid, and I'll get you a Clayton Kershaw jersey in no time. So shout out to Annie. And of course, shout out to Young Ansel. We were talking about cameras and things, how I like the 28mm focal length. And why I would buy the Leica Q if it was priced right. Meaning if it was priced around 2,000 buckaroos, I'd definitely pick that up. I don't think anything more because the fixed focal length and 28mm is limiting in some regards. It's just my favorite focal length and I know how to work with that as a reason why I like it. So for me, that would be a good pickup, especially because I don't think people realize how rare and how amazing fast 28mm focal length lenses are. For that to be a 28mm 1.7 is a huge deal because for any of y'all that shoot photojournalistic or any kind of documentary photography, you know 28mm for a majority of all time have been f2s, maybe 2.8, 3.5 f4s. I've even, a lot of older lenses, you can get 28mm in there and 3.5s, but it's a big deal whenever you have a 1.7. With Leica Q, if I want to shoot 50mm, they have that crop mode and you have a big enough sensor to where you still get some stuff in there, and it works out for the most part. But that's why I would buy that. And the reason why we were discussing that, and I was discussing it with Lee DeLeon too, is because I really like 28mm focal length, but I want also something that's not the Leica Q, that's just small. I wanted something small to carry around. That's why I'm shooting all these that's why I'm buying these film point shoots. I was explaining that how, I might want the Fuji X70 or the Ricoh GR2 or the 3. I like how the GR2 has the flash still on it, so that's why I lean towards that. And, we started talking about his X100V, and I mentioned my fiance has the X100T, but I've never been able to get on board with the, the 35mm focal length. By the way, this is my third time recording this video because my other Takstar SGC 598 gave up the ghost just now, so that really sucks because it literally gave up the ghosty poo. But the reason why I didn't ever go for the X100V is because of 35mm focal length. If it was 28mm or 40mm focal length, I would definitely have gone with it over the X Pro 3 and all the interchangeable lens system and everything and all the goodness of it. I would have gone with that camera, not for the video or anything, but just for the photography. But unfortunately, it's not that focal length. And so we were just talking about it. He tells me how much he loves the 35mm focal length. I know he creates well with it. And I started thinking, maybe you're just being a bitch because you can walk up to your 40mm focal length or step back for your 28mm focal length kind of framing. And so I thought I'd take this with me, and so for the next couple days I'm gonna do a project where I'm shooting just with this. I've got some places to be and some things to do, and so for a little bit I'm just gonna be shooting only with my fiance's X100T, which of course every fella, say it in the comments when you buy something for your significant other who are not a photographer, he or she also knows that when you buy this for them, you also bought it for you. So I'm the one putting it to use, but this focal length's fine, and this camera's great. My fiance's actually taken some of my favorite photos ever using this camera. She's actually taken a couple great portraits of me. She's taken amazing photos of her family. This is a great camera to have with family. It is fantastic. I can't say more about it. But even more, it works really well. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because it's my thoughts about this. If you are choosing between the X100V, the X100F, and the X100T, and it's going to be probably your primary camera, and you don't care about the conversion lenses, and you just care about 35mm focal length, and you are in a place that needs weatherproofing all the time, meaning you don't live in a place like Seattle it'll hinder your shooting if you're not weatherproofed, or you're not living in a place like Hawaii where it'll hinder your shooting if you're not weatherproof during certain times of the year, especially with the humidity there. And if you don't care about video that much and you're not going to use it to record a whole bunch of video, unless you're in a pinch, which this can record video in a pinch, I would skip both the X100V and the X100F and buy this. Because yesterday was shooting with this, the focus is great. The autofocus is fantastic. Everything you have on here is great. It feels great. It works great. It's in the Goldilocks zone for what I consider the Goldilocks zone for cameras for APS-C sensor. It's between the 13 to 20 megapixel sensor size, which the reason why I call that the Goldilocks zone, because you're getting good enough resolution, period, and you're also not sacrificing for low light and having issues that come in there. And then of course with Mari and stuff like that. The other thing that I will mention is that, and it's the same thing in full frame, I think between 24 megapixels and 30 megapixels, that range right there is a Goldilocks zone for full frame to me, as far as getting the resolution you need with not sacrificing too much in low light. But you know, it goes to say that these are nearly all identical builds, but this is a lighter, smaller camera than the X100V. You know, I love the grip on this. The grip on this is great. The feel in your hand is great. I know some people have said otherwise, but because I have such large hands, this is a one-hand operational camera. I can literally adjust the aperture like that. That is easy as heck to me to bring it down. I can bring it back up, easy. I can adjust my shutter. If I don't want it on auto, I can adjust it here. I have my ISO dial set, and I have my exposure compensation. So now that my ISO's on auto, I basically use my exposure compensation technically to adjust basically, you know, my exposure. And then of course I have this. This is a one-hand operational camera. Again, I have big hands, maybe that's why, but that is good to me. Even if I want to focus in manual focus, I can literally operate this with one hand manual focusing also. So this is a great camera. If I'm working around my neck, it's not really that intrusive to anyone. I mean, if I got the all black version of this for us, this would have been a lot better as far as non-intrusive. But even this, people probably think, you know, people will ask questions about this. Is that a film camera? And I could tell them, yeah, if I wanted to. I can turn off the back LCD if I want to. I can put some cardboard or some leatherette tape on there. But yeah, this is a great camera. I would go with this over the X100V or the X100T, and that's just me, because for everything you're needing, unless you need the extra film simulations or the extra megapixels, if this is going to be a camera that you're not doing, if you don't need all those extra things, let me say that, because this can be professional too, because honestly, I've got to shoot in a couple weeks for a graduation, and I'm probably going to take this as my second. They're taking photos with multiple people, so I'm probably going to, if I have the 35 1.4 and I don't want to take that off, I'm probably going to switch to this and shoot, and then go from there, if that makes sense. So this is a great, you can use this professionally too, but this is just I think this is the sweet spot for a bang for your buck. This is it, because the focus isn't horrible. It does the face tracking. I have it set up and it does work. I've even done it to where I have it set up to where I'm putting it towards photos of people, and it's putting boxes around all the faces. Let me put that again. it is putting boxes around all the faces, and I'm still able to move around with this to pick which ones I want, and whichever one I have that's closest to, it's gonna pick. That's a big deal. This thing does well. I don't even know if this is up to date. I had never done a firmware update with this. This is a great camera. This is fast enough in focus, and I mean fast enough. I was shooting it, so one thing I will say is it's not a small camera. It's not a pocket camera. I had it in my pocket and I pulled it out and I messed up because this went from auto to 1/1000th of a second, and I was shooting auto ISO at f4, and I was inside of a grocery store. So of course you can imagine how bad that is, a combination for a dimly lit HEB. But even with that, the shots came out great with that. The shots were fantastic. It's not a pocketable camera. I'm not able to move around, but still, the photos I got with this, the ones that I liked, they were really, really good. And there wasn't, literally being able to pop this out, boom, take a photo, crop in a little bit. There's not a whole bunch of issues, again, because that sensor size, low light's better. This is the X-Trans 2 sensor, which is my favorite X-Trans sensor of all time. My favorite X-Trans sensor. I almost fell over because of how in love I am with this. One thing I will say as well, if you're coming from film and you just want if you shoot primarily film and you want a little side shooter, a digital one just for the ease of it, and you're gonna edit to look like your film, this sensor, the X-Trans 2 in this camera, this is the best if you're coming from film, because this gives you the best filmic look. The transition from shadows to highlight with this camera are the best, I believe, that Fujifilm has ever done. The way the highlights are captured are the best in this camera that Fuji has ever done. I know the other sensors are great. They really are fantastic. They're really pushing the mold of APS-C, but I just want you to know that for me, this is the best, in my eyes, sensor that Fujifilm has ever created. And so I believe this is the if this is the X-Trans 2, I'm sure it is, but I just had to get that out there because I stand by that. This gives you a filmic look if you come from shooting film. If you want to edit and add grain, it looks great, especially because the way you transition from shadow to highlights to where there's not a lot of issues in between that. You don't have the weirdness of putting grain on digital, where in the white you can see all of the grain, unlike in film where it's not really present at all. You don't really have that much with this sensor. But anyway, going back to it, going into the HEB and shooting with this was a breeze. This was easy, being able to shoot from the hip. But the one thing again is having to there were a couple situations where I wish it was wider. And there were a couple situations where I wish it was longer. And this isn't a full review on this or anything like that, but for telling you in 2021, I'm trying to find a good point and shooting this all the time, this being the one camera I'm shooting, that's just one thing. Is there are a couple shots, I was shooting a rack of bananas where there was some cool stuff below and above, and I was at my end. I couldn't back up any further, and unfortunately this was not wide enough to get everything I wanted to get in the shot, even when shooting vertical. So it kind of made my shot not as what I want it to be. I'm sure it's fine, but it's not what I intended. And then even then, whenever I was shooting, checking out, there was a woman in the cashier ahead of me and shooting like this, trying to get both of them, and it was a little bit too wide. If it was 40 millimeter, I would have reached out and got the composition I wanted, but shooting from the hip, I got a lot of my shopping cart, and so it's still a good shot, but it's not the shot that I was going for. But still, the shots that I did get where they hit were fantastic. The autofocus on this was crazy good the whole time. I'm talking about I'm pointing, and as soon as I half press, boom, because I don't just press down, I go half press and then boom. So it's that little bit of tick, tick. This still hit focus. This still got the shot. Altogether, this thing performs. I can't deny that. This X100T in 2021 is still a top performer, period. This thing just does its job. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It does not, I've never been failed by this. I was even messing around yesterday and shooting in low light. It's still got focus. This thing has not failed me. Couple that in the fact that this still has high speed sync for flash, because it has that leaf shutter that's super duper quiet. This is a great, if you want to do street photography, do you hear that? This is still a great camera for sure. This is everywhere else around here is very dimly lit. And let me adjust my settings. And it's still focusing quick. I mean, it is fantastic. I'm shooting RAW and JPEG. It's focusing quick. It's taking the shot. It's getting me back to where I can take another photo. It's not doing long for processing. You know, I have it on single shot. And again, with the faces, it can still read. I programmed one of the buttons to be face tracking, and man, it was tracking. Is it tracking your eye? No, but at the same time, come on, dude. Do you need eye autofocus with everything? Let's just get this out of the fucking way. I don't need eye autofocus for everything, okay? I don't. When I'm shooting a giant group, or I'm shooting environmental portraiture, which is the 35mm is gonna give you, I don't need eye autofocus for everything, okay? One last thing is this has a D-pad in Fujifilm. Quit fucking around and put a D-pad back on cameras. I don't like the joystick on the X Pro 3. I'm afraid with one too many actuations, I'm gonna snap that thing. Put the D-pad back on. If you wanna make it more minimalistic, put the D-pad down here at the bottom, okay? Remove some of the side buttons, remove those buttons right there on the edge, and just put them all on the D-pad, and then let us edit them however we want to, or keep the Q button and take away that function button here, take away that put the fucking D-pad back in, okay? No one told you to take that shit out. Not one fucking person said, you know what I would like, as if it didn't have a D-pad, okay? Get your shit together, Fujifilm. Stop making big ass lenses, give me another pancake, and bring back the fucking D-pad, okay? Oy vey. Anyway, but that's it, man. I mean, that's been my experience so far. This isn't a review on it. This is just me telling you first glance, first time taking it out for a full day, or for a full moments like that, walking around, getting some cool shots. It's a badass camera. I would, if I had all the money in the world and you said I could buy any group of cameras like that for what I need, and I could keep the rest. Let's say you gave me $5,000. I could buy any camera I wanted to from any company and whatnot, and I wanted to point and shoot. I would pick this over the X100V and X100T. And I could use the rest to buy whatever, but I would pick this over them. Great camera. I can't say enough about it. Do I choose the XC3? No. But X100T and X100V, I'll definitely choose this over it. It's fantastically built. It feels good. It's this was made in 2014, I believe, and it's still rocking and banging. You know, and I checked it. I think there's only about there's only 7,000 photos on this thing. So whoever has before me really didn't use it. And so, great camera. That's all I can say about it, honestly. I'm gonna keep on shooting with it. 35mm still is not my favorite focal length, but this camera is so nice, and the autofocus is so good, and it's so snappy that it kind of makes up for that right now. And so that's basically it. Shout out to all those people I talked about. I'll have another video about this coming out soon. But first glance of it and first use of it for like actually going out and about, I'd probably choose this over the X100T or X100V and X100F, and it's not too bad, this camera, but I still miss that 28mm focal length. So that's all for me, man. Have a good day.